throat or cough like as soon as we start record. Without fail.
We're back.
With the Dr. Z show.
I'm your host, Jacob.
I'm your other host, Anthony. It's weird that I now that I refer to myself as Tony, but you still refer to me as Anthony because you knew me then.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to sort of take a second to be like, wait, how should I introduce myself? And I was thinking about this. How should I introduce myself to Abby's family at your wedding? Am I Anthony or am I Tony?
You're whoever you want to be.
If someone calls me Anthony, do I correct them?
Like, no, it's Tony, and then you grab a knife and stab them.
Wow, okay.
It doesn't have to be a sharp knife.
That extreme. Okay. Well, I mean, if you're gonna stab somebody, you need a sharp knife. Never half-ass something.
It could be. You could stab them unsuccessfully.
Okay.
This is what it is about.
How to not about stabbing people. Shockingly enough, not that you would ever know. What is this episode about, Jacob?
I was still trying to answer the question of how do you introduce yourself. The other thing that I was thinking about is whenever my brain always at least in the background when people say they're the host of something, I always think about alien parasites because I grew up reading Animorphs. So.
You have a problem.
Yeah, I have a problem with word association. I'm addicted to it.
I mean, it's a healthier addiction than other things, I would argue.
Cocaine, Furby collection.
I mean, that was really extreme, really suddenly, but sure. You're not wrong. What you said was not incorrect.
Especially the Furby collection.
That's an unhealthy addiction.
Very unhealthy. But our episode today is bizarre. About... Yeah, Furbies are real bizarre.
Okay,
and focus. If anyone doesn't know what that is, they can look it up.
Don't. All right, it's on topic.
Okay. So, the topic for today is video game difficulty, sort of. More so about supplemental material around gaming. Do games need, or is it okay for games to be designed in such a way that you can't figure things out on your own, or figuring things out on your own would take forever? Kind of comparing old games like Mario, it's pretty obvious how you win, versus Minecraft, where it's is there...
What do I do?
No one's gonna figure out how to fight the Ender Dragon just on their own, right? It would take bazillions of hours of gameplay to just figure that out on your own.
And especially on PC, where there's not a built-in system to craft, even crafting a sword or a shovel with the crafting table, making a crafting table, all of this is stuff that's not... It's not spelled out for you how to do any of these things. Farming, forget it.
Yeah.
So that's what today's episode is about. And I'll let you sort of start us off, because you had some things to say about, I think it was Majora's Mask was what you first mentioned.
Yeah. So just as an example, I played Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and I felt like all of the puzzles were stuff that you could figure out on your own for the most part. Admittedly, I did know that, I was just thinking of the fight with Ganondorf, where you reflect his attacks back at him. But I think there were previous parts of the game where you had to do stuff like that, so it wasn't 100% unintuitive to do that. The water temple...
I want to say that Princess Zelda mentions something, or It might not be Princess Zelda. It might be Impa. Mentions something in like a dialogue that's like, oh, you have to like use the Master Sword to reflect his evil or something like.
Okay.
There's usually
So,
something about that in Legend of Zelda games anyway, like about it, like where they're like, oh, you need to use like the Sword of Evil's Bane to defeat Ganondorf, and like whatever. Because
um,
you could have the Bigoron sword in the final fight in Ocarina of Time, and you could like wail on him with it, but it wouldn't defeat him. Like you couldn't win using the Bigoron sword. You know what I mean?
yeah. Something that I also just thought about was, I'll finish the thought. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
the water temple is something that everyone collectively groans at as being something difficult. But I still feel like it might have been time consuming, but it was still something you could figure out on your own. Like, okay, there's these switches. I need to press them and adjust the water level to do these things. Like there wasn't like a lot of like you had to find the stuff, but you knew what you were looking for, basically. Um, Whereas, and then in Majora's Mask, like I used a guide a lot for Majora's Mask because, um, one, there in each of the dungeons, there's like 15 fairies you can find, and if you find all of them, you get a bonus. And I was like, I'm not like this is
You're
crazy.
not
Like,
gonna spend hours and hours and hours looking for each one.
yeah, especially because you don't have hours and hours and hours.
Right, because Majora's Mask is
A 3 day time
mini
limit.
game of the game.
Yeah, and some of the dungeons you can like only go in on like the second day, I think,
Right.
or like stuff like that. So,
To
um,
to sort of preface your conversation a little bit about Majora's Mask, I will go ahead and say this, even though people will be like, "What?" Um, I personally did not like Majora's Mask. I did. I've tried to play it. I've tried to get into it, and it's not for me. Like I love Ocarina of Time, but I felt like Majora's Mask took like the mask mini game and the to me uninteresting character of Skull Kid and just like blew it up and like made it the entire game. And it didn't feel, I don't know, it felt weird to me.
yeah, it's it's. I will agree that it is a weird game. Like it has a very weird vibe to it. Sometimes creepy, but more often than not, just kind of weird. Um, and
But the weirdness like has a purpose, right? It's not like weird for just like for the sake of being weird.
yeah, yeah, it's weird because the world is coming to an end, and there's it's a lot of people subscribe to the theory that it's like a metaphor for death. Um, where like,
Val's theme goes with everything, including the moon crashing into the clock tower.
oh my gosh,
Look up
um,
look up the video. Gal's theme goes with everything. Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and it's the moon crashing into the clock tower while Guile's theme from Street Fighter 2 plays in the background.
that sounds amazing. I have to watch it. Okay, but point with Majora's Mask though. I think the mechanic of it, of you having a set time limit, although you can reset the days and everything.
You can do that at any point, right?
Where Yeah, yeah, you can because you have a song that can restart it. Um, but having that kind of like time limit and sort of precise timing on certain events and everything makes it so that figuring out some of the puzzles, like taking the time to figure them out, is you're kind of like I've been on this side quest forever kind of thing.
Trial and error to the point where it's like, okay, I've tried this 1,000 times. Like,
hmm
why is
and
the
I think
1,000th time going to be any
yeah,
different?
yeah, and admittedly, I think I used the guide for the Bigoron Sword quest, because
Oh yeah,
that's
because
like
it's bonkers.
it's really long, and
There's so many like random steps. Like you need a frog to get the eye drop. Like what? Like But here's the thing though. When I first played Ocarina of Time, I had watched my cousins play it like a million times, and I had actually watched my cousin do the Bigoron Sword quest. And so the first time that I played Legends like Ocarina of Time on my own, I didn't use a guide for the Bigoron Sword quest and was able to complete it. There were things I had to try multiple times, and I was like, wait, hold on, like I
Yeah.
was like trying to remember what exactly to do when, but then going back like years and years later when I got it for 3DS, I was like, okay, I don't remember how to do the Bigoron Sword quest at all. Like, what on earth am I supposed to be doing here? I know I get the Bigoron Sword quest at this point, but I do not remember how. And so I used a guide. And this is sort of what I was saying earlier off record is like I still had fun. Like I still had, roughly the same amount of fun as I would have without a guide.
Yeah.
And I think therein like lies the point. Like, did you have less fun playing Majora's Mask with a guide?
Not for the fairy part. I think the only thing that in retrospect that I think was less fun was when I got to the fight with Majora, and maybe this is just a case of like get good. But when I got to the fight with Majora himself, I didn't have the Fierce Deity's mask my first time, and I just
You
I had
don't
no
need
idea
you
how
don't
to
need it,
damage
do you?
him. You
Or
don't
do you
need it.
need? Okay,
You don't
just
need it.
trying.
You can beat him without it, but like I
Right.
had no idea how to damage him. Like I was just like running around like just trying items, like shooting, like I had and nothing was working. Um and so I was like, well, hmm. Uh and so then I used like the guide that I had to get all of the masks and turn them in to get the Fierce Deity's mask, and then I wailed on him. Um, and like I still really enjoy Majora's Mask like as a game because it's weird and creepy and kind of uh, breaks a lot of it's
Breaks the meta
yeah I don't want to say because it's not a fun game, but like because uh
because it's
it
different.
it pushes you like the constraint of the timing is interesting, um although there are problems with it, I think, in that eh, as we said with the whole trial and error kind of thing. um
Innovation requires risks. It's Nintendo's
yeah,
like entire life philosophy.
yeah, as a kind of opposite thing with like Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild does have, these, you can only do certain things at certain times of day, but you can teleport pretty much anywhere on the map, like as you unlock things, and then you can also like you can sit at the campfires and change the time of day to the certain point that you need, um, as you're exploring. So uh, well, kind of getting away from Zelda games. So this episode isn't just entirely about Zelda games. Something that we talked about a little bit off record as well was games like Minecraft and perhaps Breath of the Wild. These kind of open world ish games have more of a stumble upon explore element to them, where things aren't like laid out for you. Whereas a more linear game like Mario or some of the original Mega Man games, like the mechanics are pretty well spelled out for you. So you're not uh, the you're not going to like waste a lot of time, I guess, exploring or not knowing how to do things, because there's only like one thing you need to do. You need to like jump and shoot, like move to the right to progress. Like that's all.
Yeah, what you were saying before, like Mega Man like teaches you how to play as you're playing, and Breath of the Wild like sort of like it tells you the controls and it gives you a goal, and then it's just like, okay, go. But the
Mm-hmm.
first time you do everything, like the first time you make a campfire, the first time you get a horse, or the first time you like get a bow or whatever, like the first time, and when you unlock the runes for the first time, like it tells you, it's like, okay, this is how you use this item, or like
That's
this
true.
is how you do this thing, and then it just like gives you sort of a playground to do that.
Yes.
Minecraft, you could wander for hours and be like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, how do I make these castles that I see people like with, and like how do I, like, what is happening? Because there's no tutorial. Like, it doesn't tell you, it tells you nothing about how to play. And so Minecraft is like sort of, and there are like guides, like, okay, this is how Minecraft works, like this is how you play Minecraft. But it's mostly, I think, based on like shared knowledge. Like, you have to know somebody or read something about the game to sort of teach you how to play it. And I
Yeah.
think is in the sense of like, especially Minecraft, like I don't think it makes it like less good,
Mm-hmm.
but it's different. It's wildly different in its approach to teach or not teach the player.
Yeah, it's like you can have a lot of fun playing Minecraft, and never even know that there is an Ender Dragon. Um, Although they have made kind of strides towards that end when they had the achievement, um, like when they introduced the achievement tree, and then when I
Oh
played
yeah.
it, they did have a thing where it was it kind of like it saved recipes for you, and like showed you that you had like item recipes, like it had a built-in thing that would save them
Okay.
for you. So it's, but in its original days, like you had no idea about anything. It was like, have fun figuring this out. Like there's lots of things to figure out. And like you almost, I I looked up so much online because
Oh yeah.
I was like, I don't, like, how do I, what's even the recipe for stairs?
And there are games like Dark Souls. Like a lot of Dark Souls, like you could play through all of Dark Souls. And granted, the first time I played it, I did. You could play through all Dark Souls and miss like kind of half the game. Like you miss so much because you don't notice like this hidden door, or you don't go to this area to get this item or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could play it with a guide and stop every 10 minutes and be like, all right, where am I supposed to go now? And then there's like the middle ground, like, okay, I need a guide to get this item, but I don't need a guide to like fight this boss or whatever.
Yeah.
So while that requires on some shared knowledge, or while it relies on some shared knowledge, it's not required to play the game, I would say, to like its fullest extent.
Mm-hmm. I I'm not gonna say that games should or shouldn't do things because there's lots of different games for lots of different people, and I think for me personally, I don't like hidden stats in games, like because I kind of
So
like
for
having
example,
everything like so I love Enter the Gungeon. What I don't like is that there's just these benefits that are not explained. Like you'll go to a shrine and it'll be like, you've been blessed with this and cursed with this, but like you have no idea what either of those things mean. Like,
do you ever reach a point in the game where it tells you what those means?
no.
No, and then
Nope.
there's the coolness stat, which is never explained. All you know is that there are some items that don't seem to have any use, but if you get them and you look online, it's only by looking online that you find out that it reduces the cooldown of active items.
Yep.
Hi, Abby.
Hello.
Yep. Abby's here. Um because the internet at her apartment is way better than the internet at mine, and so it's like they don't be cut out of the call.
Well, so it's not that Abby is there; it's that you are there.
Yes.
She is there because she lives there. You are there because the internet is better.
Yes, and because I love her.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's required.
So yeah, and that's just for me personally. I like being able to come up with like combinations of items or think about stuff and have realizations on my own to a degree. And so I like having at least kind of the parts out on the table. But obviously,
Figure out
like
how to put
there's
it together yourself.
yeah, but obviously there's part of me too that's like maybe I know what the parts are, but I'm like it's gonna take me forever to figure this out on my own. Like the fairies and the dungeons in Majora's Mask, like I was not about to like try and find all of those on my own.
Well, here's a question about
yeah.
Majora's Mask. Just because, like, I'm ignorant because I didn't play the entire game. But, so, say you're in a dungeon. Can you reset the time limit within the dungeon?
No.
Okay.
No, you have to, when you reset everything, you reset yourself to Clock Town. So you have like a time limit to finish the dungeon.
Okay.
So it's stressful. I really like the aesthetic. I think after all said and done, I like the aesthetic of Majora's Mask a lot. Mechanically, it's real hard. But I liked the aesthetic of it enough that it was like it might have been my favorite Zelda game for a while, but like looking back now, I think it's like probably Ocarina of Time. Maybe Breath of the Wild. I don't know. I'm real torn.
Ouch.
Breath of the Wild is Breath of the Wild. Like it's like in a separate category. Like it is a Zelda game, but it's not because it's like so far.
It's so far removed. Well, it's sort of like, okay, so we're getting off topic here, but it's related, kind of. It's sort of like Pokemon Sun and Moon. Like Pokemon Sun and Moon don't have gyms, and I've like explained to people, and they're like, "What? Like, how can they not have gyms? Like, what's going on?" And I'm like, okay, well, like the game is, like structured differently. Like
Yeah.
it's still Pokemon, and it still feels like Pokemon. Like I don't want people to think like, oh no, it's like no longer Pokemon. Like it still feels like you're playing Pokemon.
It tastes like Pokemon.
Okay, you just got real weird with that, but
no, it's
you know what
I'm
saying.
quoting the High School Sucks music video when he like smelled, even tastes new.
That is old hat YouTube. Wow. Okay. Wow. All right. Not sponsored.
Yep.
Point. It's still Pokemon, and it still feels like Pokemon when you're playing it. So.
And you do still pit monsters against monsters?
Yeah. You still like pit your pets your pets against one another.
I'm glad no one's petting their pits. That sounds weird. You're welcome.
Anyway. I don't even know where. Like, now I've lost my train of thought. Like,
I may or may not have crashed it.
It's still boarding at the station. Don't do it. I know what you're gonna do. Don't do it.
The train heading for station.
God,
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
It still upsets me so much that he's not in Smash Brothers. Like,
I'm Knuckles. Aquatic Mind.
What?
The rap album from Sonic Adventure 2 of like all of Knuckles, like all of his level themes.
We'll have to talk. We'll talk later about that. Anyway, so yeah, so like we'll take that as an example. So Sonic Adventure, when you're playing Sonic Adventure as Sonic, what do you have to figure anything out? Or it's
Yes.
like, okay, go to the next area.
There are a couple puzzles where you need to get those like the little elemental shrine
stones?
thing. Yeah, the elemental stones, and you like take them to the shrine location. So there's a level of exploration there. The puzzles aren't really that hard. It's like, oh, like you found the thing. Obviously, this thing goes there. Like it's the only one that you have access to right now. So there was that. And then a few of the upgrades, it's not super clear that they even exist.
The Lightspeed boots, I think, are.
Yeah, it's like you have to go into the sewer to find them, or like there's a random closet on somewhere.
Yeah, like one of the doors to one of the shops opens at a certain point in the game. But you can figure that out sort of like by yourself, like in like kind of a linear.
And the game doesn't have so much content, perhaps, that, and admittedly, you can finish the game without some of those things. So I guess I don't know if we're really even in trying to answer the question of like, do you need supplemental material? I think most people, when they design a game, most of the time it's not so confusing that you need supplemental material to finish it. For instance, like I could for some of the shrines in Breath of the Wild that I used a guide for, I could have finished the game without that. Like same with Gungeon, like with enough time. Admit I like haven't even beaten the dragon yet. Like I given enough time.
You like that game because it's about puns.
It does.
Yeah. But like given enough time, like I could beat the game. But as far as understanding what all the content is, I definitely need a guide for it because it doesn't tell you.
Okay, here's your question.
Makes it a bad game.
And here's your original question though. When you brought this up with me, should you need a guide? I think this was your original question. Correct me if I'm wrong. Should you need a guide to enjoy a game to like the fullest extent? So like, do you enjoy the game more, or like, do you feel like you enjoy the game more or less because you don't have that like that extra like knowledge? Does it make the game worse or less enjoyable because you don't you haven't found the secret item or whatever?
Well, knowledge or not knowledge, sorry, ignorance is bliss. Knowledge is power. So
Yeah,
the
I mean, no,
bliss
that's
aspect of it, if you never knew that a game had a secret thing, you still could have played through the entire game, quote unquote entire game, and enjoyed it. And then maybe you find out, like when you find out later, like, oh, like there's the secret thing you can do, your reaction is either like, oh man, like I missed that, or like, holy mackerel, this game's so great, there's like all of this extra stuff that I can go back and do because I love this game. Is those are kind of like what I would, a game that you've enjoyed playing, like that's what I expect someone's reaction to be when you find out about hidden content. However, just as a complaint for quote unquote hidden stats in games, I am not as happy when I like, on the one hand, if I get something that's like a useless item, like I don't know, like a soup ladle in Breath of the Wild, I at least know that it's useless. Like if you're gonna get useless items, I want to know that they're useless. But if I get an item that tells me I have some kind of benefit and I have no idea what the benefit is, yeah, like I would like to know. It was kind of like the luck stat in a lot of games, it's like
Oh yeah, it doesn't like it affects you sort of.
somehow, somewhere. Yeah, but it doesn't say like you have a like I would like for when you mouse over or click on that stat or whatever for it to say specifically like you have a 15% increased chance of dodging attacks that would otherwise hit you or something like that. Like, or
Okay, well here's an example. I'm like this is the example for me that immediately came to mind when you mentioned that. The in Fallout 3 there's a perk you can get called Mysterious Stranger, where he appears in vats and like one shots an enemy.
mm-hmm.
Or like basically one shots an enemy. He does like extreme damage. And he doesn't always appear. And I think it was first in Fallout 3 it did not explain when or how he would show up. And it was seemingly random. And I think in Fallout New Vegas, I would have to go back and look this up. But I think it was in New Vegas where they said the chance of him appearing and the amount of damage he does is based on your luck. So like you have a higher luck, like you don't see the actual math that's going into it, but if you have a higher luck, then he's more likely to show up, is what they were saying. So does that like sort of satisfy your like need to know, even if you don't see like the equation or the exact like percentage chance, does that still like you personally, does that still satisfy your need to like know how luck, for example, is helping you?
Yes. Although I think I wouldn't even really like even if luck wasn't a stat, like it's cool to know that, but knowing, for instance, if you get the Mysterious Stranger, just knowing like I feel like what happens in Gungeon is you would get something like the Mysterious Stranger, and it's entirely possible that you have no idea what it does, like ever. But if you got a description like, oh, every so often, and maybe it doesn't even tell you that it's based off luck, like every so often this thing will happen, and then you see it happen at some point in the game, like that's satisfying. But like just getting a random perk is like, I don't even know what that does for me. I want like items or abilities or whatever to at least have a description of what they are.
Like the ballot is the most item.
I forget what the ballot does.
Well, it increases your cool, but all it does is like you should vote. Like voting is good. Maybe.
Yeah.
What? I didn't catch all that.
There's an item in Gungeon called the ballot that you just holding it, like the only description of it is that like voting is cool. And so if you like have
ballot, like voting ballot. Okay, I was like ballot.
Yeah.
Like the ballot.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't want this to just be a complaint, but I think in terms of communicating stuff in games and needing guides, I think I don't know, maybe my final say in it is that like items,
it doesn't have to spell it out for you, but you want to know what's going on.
I want to know what I'm working with. Like maybe I don't know the solution to a puzzle, but I would at least like to know what the puzzle pieces are. Like even if I have to go find the puzzle pieces, like I at least want to know maybe that they exist.
Okay, that's actually a good way to put it. That makes sense to me.
So
yeah, because if you don't know what the puzzle looks like when you're done, arguably it's a lot harder to put the puzzle together.
Yeah.
So, knowing what the puzzle pieces are is like you want a picture of, what the end result is going to be. You don't have to know the end of the game, but you want to know, and it doesn't have to spell it out for you, but you want to know like that you can get there.
Yeah. And I think just from a game design perspective, kind of Metroidvania games do at least good ones. Do a pretty good job of like halting your progress and showing you that there's a reason for your progress being halted there. Like I'm thinking of Hollow Knight, like, just certain jump arcs you just can't make without the items that augment your mobility.
Right.
And it
Okay.
does a really good job of like not letting you enter areas that you can't like get out of.
There's no like point of no return. Like you jump in this path, but you don't have the double jump, so you can't get back out.
Yeah.
Dead Cells is really good about that too. Like there's a permanent upgrade you can get called the Spider Rune that allows you to cling to walls, and the mini boss that you fight to get the Spider Rune from is down this like pit. So like
Cool.
you go down there and you like have to fight this boss, and you can't leave, you can't escape, you can't get out of the pit until you defeat him and take the Spider Rune.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a good element of the game. Doesn't necessarily, well, the game doesn't tell you in text, but like it can communicate to you through level design.
Like
and so
Mega Man 2? Or Mega Man X rather. Sorry.
Yeah, the intro stage, Mega Man X, which will herald forever.
No, I mean like as we should, like it, like even looking back on it, is playing through it, you're like, wow, this like I'm learning how to play this game without it being spelled out for me, or without like any text anywhere, save from the end where you speak to X for the first time, like telling you how to progress or that you will progress or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But you're learning.
Yeah. So I think it's okay for games to have secret content that is not maybe like crucial to like finishing the game. Like there's lots of I have the most experience playing Zelda games as far as games that have secret content.
Right.
Like in rooms and dungeons that maybe you have to like charge up your sword and hit it and hear that the wall makes a different sound and you can put a bomb there. Like but that stuff was like you got an extra 100 rupees most of the time. It wasn't like, oh, like here's a crucial item like for your progression.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's a spot in, and they put it back in Link Between Worlds, but there's a spot in Link to the Past on the northeastern part of Hyrule Lake. When you go around the outside and you go to the northeastern part of Hyrule Lake, there's a bombable wall there. And there's a puzzle inside that cave to get the ice rod. And you don't need the ice in Link to the Past. It gave you the ice rod. In Link Between Worlds, it gave you like a bunch of rupees or something. But you don't need the ice rod in Link to the Past to complete the game. It makes parts of the game easier. It makes parts of some enemies easier to defeat, but you don't need it. It's just like you don't need it for any of the dungeons. It's just like an extra thing that's there that you like figure out yourself and you like feel good about it because you got it, through your own like wicked cunning, or because you read the guide and it told you, hey, this is where you get the ice rod and this is how you get it.
Dragons going around.
And I think like Zelda games are like really the essence of, secret content that's not crucial. Like, could you have beaten Majora's Mask without finding the 15 fairies in every dungeon?
Yeah, but I wouldn't have gotten that sweet fairy sword. Man, that was cool.
So and you could beat like it would be really hard, but you could theoretically enter the Gungeon without knowing what the ballot item does.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Although admittedly the cigarettes are like the best item.
Why?
So it takes a dock of health when you use them, but it increases your coolness.
Your coolness?
Yeah, every time you smoke a cigarette, it hurts you.
You get less health, but you become more cool.
Yeah, it hurts you, but you become more cool.
What is the coolness now? Okay, we're gonna switch gears. You gotta explain to me what these hidden stats are in Under the Gungeon. Because I play Under the Gungeon, I have a great time.
It produces
Until I get too frustrated
I-
and have to stop playing. But what are the hidden stats? Like the coolness stat? Like what does that do for you? Do you
So
do more damage or like
no, it reduces. Apparently, it only reduces the cooldown of active items. I thought that it might like increase your like luck in finding things. I guess not. When Abby looked it up last night, like it was just that it reduces the cooldown of active items, which is pretty sweet. If you have ones that like make you invulnerable, and other things like that. Um, but yeah. And it also cool items also work with um they also work with the rad gun and make it more powerful.
rad gun?
Yeah, it's the gun with the hat and the skateboard.
Yeah, I've not found it.
What? Oh man, I've found the rad gun a lot of times. And every time it has an active reload, and every time you hit the spot on the active reload, it makes the gun do more damage. To the point where it's like one-shotting some of the harder enemies.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a great gun.
This is a rad.
It's very rad. And every time you do the active reload, right, it says like cool, nice, rad, and then every time you mess up the active reload, it says whack. And like
now
cool,
I
like,
now I have to
neon,
find this.
it's like in like cool neon letters above it.
Now I have to find it. That sounds great.
It is a fantastic weapon. I think as far as like hidden stats go in games or like games where you like have to have a guide for, I don't think most, and I think I said this earlier, most games I think are designed in a way, at least quote unquote good games. Good games are designed in a way where you don't need a guide to enjoy them. And I think most games that are bad aren't bad because you need a guide. They're bad because they're bad. Like they're
There are other things that make them bad.
yeah, and it's not difficulty. Like so that's and I don't know if there's really any other games that I think luck was a in RPGs was a is a stat that is kind of like not well defined. I
Want to
think
keep it ambiguous, but I think that I think that luck in a lot of RPGs augments the RNG or whatever the what's the word I'm looking for?
potential
The
drop
equation for damage or critical hit or any of that like stuff. The
Yeah.
luck changes the equation.
One another hidden stat that is not crucial to finishing the game or enjoying the game is like the IVs in Pokemon. Like they're it's communicated a little better now, but in like the original games, like I don't know who figured out the math for them.
Oh yeah, okay.
But originally, like there was no communication within the game itself to even suggest that this stat existed or that it was based on anything. Like
Well,
now
because you didn't need them to like to beat the game.
yeah, and you still don't. But like if you want to be quote unquote like if you want to be participating in the world championship, uh you have to because you have to understand how all of these things affect the overall stat growth of your Pokemon.
Okay.
And you could maybe figure it out, but like it would have taken a real like, and I think part of the issue maybe with some of this stuff is that you have to have like you have to think scientifically about some of these things and ask these questions that a lot of times when people are playing games aren't asking, because most of the time you're just trying to figure out the thing that's preventing you from progressing in the game. You're not like asking deeper questions about the game mechanics. So, maybe in the like very first Pokemon games, someone could be like, "Oh, I wonder like, what causes this Pokemon's I don't know, like defense to grow." And most of the time you're going to stop at like, "Oh, it just naturally has a higher defense stat because it is this Pokemon." Like you're not going to get like a trial run of like, I'm going to have 6 Charizards and they're all going to fight different types of Pokemon and I'm going to measure their stat growth over time. Like, no, for the most part, no
Well,
one's
okay, so you're saying that, and yeah, for the most part you're right, but somebody somewhere has done
did
that,
it.
and
Yes.
that's possibly why we know that now.
Yes.
And therefore it's because of crowdsourcing and insane people.
Yeah. So
Okay, you can't call people insane people because you have to find all of the items.
Well,
Miss
everyone has their
800 apples.
Everyone has their own insane things that they do.
Yeah, I did a run of Skyrim where I collected skulls.
nice. I was trying
They're
to
really
become the
heavy.
Avatar in my run of Skyrim. I only wanted to do elemental damage.
Oh, you were trying to be the Avatar. I thought you said you were trying to
Yeah.
capture the Avatar. I was like, what?
Yes, I was Prince Zuko.
Best redemption arc in anime history. Don't at me.
That's really good.
It was also very good, but it's less satisfying.
Yeah. I don't really have anything else to say other than it in a weird way. This is kind of reflected, I think, what happens in real life. There's a lot of the scientific advancements are happening because of
People screwed up.
individuals or small groups of people who just wonder about something, rather than just going about like their day to day, not wondering about it, not
worrying about why it rains.
Yeah,
or
but someone
when
was like,
it's going to rain next.
yeah, but someone asked that question and it led to more knowledge.
True. So those being your sort of final thoughts, I guess, what do you think, like, where do you think this is going, kind of? Like, do you think more games are going to be like Dark Souls or Enter the Gungeon or Minecraft, where it's like reliant on a shared knowledge or like extra like insider knowledge or like a guide to sort of to 100% or to beat the game? Or do you think we're going backwards and sort of like, okay, this is how you use the item, like this is how you get to this area, like where it explains it for you?
Actually going
Or do you
back
think it's both? Like,
going back to the first Mario game, or Super Mario 3, Super Mario Bros. 3, where there's those elevators and you can get above the level and go find the secret area to like warp to World 4 or whatever.
yeah,
And
there's
then
in the original Super Mario Bros. World 1-2, if you get above the level and you run all the way to the right, eventually it drops you into a pit where you can warp to world, I want to say 4, 5, and 6, but I could be wrong.
yeah,
But you can,
I thought the first one, I thought it went 2, 3, 4, and then in like World 4-2, there was another one that took you to like 5, 6, 7, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you might be right.
But I think games are always going to, and not every game, but just I think games are always going to have secrets put in there by the developer, and whether
Like in Doom, you can kill the severed head of John Romero. Hey, the 80s were weird, dude. Like,
It's a game.
they were the 80s.
Playing it
like-
online.
No one knows what was happening in the 80s because everyone was like on a massive amount of drugs.
something that Abby just added was that it helps games have lingering presence to have secrets. Like Breath of the Wild is still being talked about because people are still learning
Discovering
new things.
Yeah. What was it? Now this brings up the question. There was something that I saw just a couple weeks ago, and I'll have to look it up, and I might, if I can find it before I upload this episode, I'll include a link in the description. But there was something that some game like 16 years later or something, that somebody found something out about the game that no one knew at the time. Like, and it's taken them this long to figure it out. That's gonna bug me that I don't remember what it is. But when I find it, I'll look for it, and when I find it, I'll include a link in the description down below. But yeah, my final thoughts are, I'm interested to see where and what kind of the sort of where the disconnect is going to be between what games and what types of games are going to have this hidden content that you could find eventually, and what types of games are going to tell you, this is how you use the item to do the thing.
Yeah.
Those are my final thoughts on it.
I think Breath of the Wild has the best kind of marriage of both of those concepts. Like when you get an item, it tells you exactly what it does. But as far as solving puzzles in the overworld, that's kind of
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the this is gonna be the last piece of this I'm gonna say, but the like the goo stuff. I don't know what the actual like term for it is.
Future jelly?
No, not the jelly. The it like hurts you when you touch it. It's like the
Oh yeah.
It's like the infected part of the area or whatever.
Like
the blight.
The blight. That's what it's called. Yeah. To recede the blight, you have to find out where the eyeball is and shoot the eyeball. And it like defeats that part of the blight, or like removes it from the area. And I remember finding that out and being like, "Wow, oh, this is so cool! Like, I'm so smart. I figured it out, guys." Like, and it's sort of that like, "Oh, I figured it out," because it wasn't so like, it was something you could figure out on your own, because the eyeballs pop up and they're like, "Hey, like, we're looking at you," and you're like, "Wait, this seems weird. Like, why does this exist? Like, I'm gonna hurt it." And
yeah,
then
and they
like,
shoot
"Oh,
like
wow."
little bats at you or whatever.
And skulls sometimes.
Yeah, the skulls. Yeah, they shoot the little skulls at you, so you want to kill them.
Yeah, so I agree with Breath of the Wild being like the perfect, maybe not perfect, but the best marriage of the concepts.
Cool.
All right, well,
just go play it. Everyone go play it.
Yeah, definitely play Breath of the Wild and
sponsored.
the Gungeon if you hate your life. We're definitely not sponsored. Yet.
Soon.
Who knows? Well, if we talked about anything that you guys disagree about, or even if you agree, let us know in the comments. Hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, or now follow us on our Twitter at the Dr. Z Show 1. And we will see you guys next week on the Dr. Z Show.
Adios.